Is the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
Can you please clarify what they have told you about whether that will happen or not?
That is not true. They did not reach that conclusion.
So what is the level of confidence that they have that it will not collapse?
The Afghan government and leadership has to come together. They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place.
And do you see any parallels between this withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam, with some people feeling...
None whatsoever. Zero. What you had entire brigades breaking through the gates of our embassy. 6, if I'm not mistaken. The Taliban is not the North Vietnamese army. They're not remotely comparable in terms of capability. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comparable. So the question now is, where do they go from here? That the jury is still out. But the likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
Boy, did that age badly for Biden, okay? Because literally everything this man said turned out to be wrong, as Kabul has fallen to the Taliban, okay? The capital of Afghanistan, right? It's yesterday the president of Afghanistan fled the country, right? He's out, okay? Him and his cash and his homies fled the country, again, as the Taliban took over. Now, again, this is embarrassing, not just for the U.S., but for Biden, whom, again, assured us that this was not going to happen, but it did anyways. It really shows how strong Biden's pullout game is, right? And we've learned that Biden's pullout game is weak. He has a weak pullout game. And amid this happening, right, amidst this embarrassment, we have Trump calling on Biden to resign in disgrace over the crisis in Afghanistan. So yeah, Trump is speaking out about this, okay? He's going at Biden hard over this because Trump feels that Biden basically botched his plan, and then he feels that he would have handled this situation better. Now, it's my personal opinion, guys, that, I think Trump is right. I do think that I would trust Trump to handle this situation better than Biden. However, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Taliban would not have tried to do this once Trump had withdrawn mostly all the troops. They probably would have still tried, okay? Because, that army got overrun, right? The Afghan army got overrun. They obviously don't want to fight for their own country. And we have been funding them and training them, right? $83 billion worth of training for years, okay? And at the end of the day, I think it's clear that the Taliban would have tried to do this regardless. But I think the difference between Trump and Biden is that Trump made it clear that if y'all try this, then we're going to pull back in and come at you guys with a force that you've never seen before, right? He basically said, look, you try this, we're going to clap back. Biden's not saying that. Biden's saying, y'all could just have it, right? Just take the country. So the criticism of Biden, guys, is really not about him withdrawing from the country, right? Because most American people, they don't want to be in Afghanistan anymore. We don't want our troops dying anymore because of this. We've lost thousands of troops because of this silly war in Afghanistan that really is about the materials and the strategic military location of Afghanistan more than it's about so-called fighting terrorism and building up a democratic government of Afghanistan. We really don't give a damn about building up a democratic Afghanistan, right? Because if they were democratic and they didn't back us, I guarantee we would not be supporting them. We would not be supporting them. What we really care about is the strategic asset that is Afghanistan in regards to its location in the Middle East, neighboring India, neighboring Pakistan, neighboring Iran, China, and being close to Russia. right? So yes, in the ideal situation, right, it would be great if we could have a democratically elected government in Afghanistan, right, that backs us, right? As long as they back us, okay, yeah, it'd be great because we could park our, our military, okay? We could, take advantage of some of these rich materials and resources that come from this country as well that are worth well over $1 trillion, okay? That would be great, all that women's rights stuff, all that humanitarian stuff, all that human rights stuff, that's secondary. Let's keep it real. We keeping it real on this channel, okay? We're not sugarcoating America's foreign policy goals, what they actually really want, okay? Because this is how superpowers operate. This is how China operates. This is how Russia operates. This is how Great Britain had operated for hundreds of years, okay? It's all about control of resources, right? Let's not play games here, okay, in terms of how the world works. We're not above all that, and we shouldn't be because we are a global superpower. It is what it is. This is why we've basically been involved in this country, right, since the late 1970s. You guys remember Operation Cyclone, right, in which, we funded the Mujahideen, whom were predecessors to the Taliban. So, allegedly, you guys can look this up. We may have had a hand in training and funding these guys for a long time, okay? And basically, our problem got too big for us to handle, right? That's essentially what happened once they overthrew the Soviet-backed government during the Afghan Civil War from, I think, like 1989 to like the early 90s, 1993, 1994, something like that, right? They overthrew the government. And then after that, we went back in after 9/11, okay? So, I mean, look, this is a problem that essentially we helped cause really from the get-go because, again, we were fighting proxy wars with Russia, okay, and the Soviet Union. And at some point, right, you got to kind of let it go, okay? So I'm not criticizing Biden for that. Biden's criticism is coming from the way he handled it, the fact that he showed weakness, okay? And that is what led to the situation. And it's not just me. Even the mainstream media, even CNN is acknowledging that Biden has handled this with weakness. Take a look.
Secretary Blinken, as you know, the Taliban has closed in on Kabul. We're evacuating the embassy, burning documents. Biden increased troops deploying to the country twice in 3 days just to rescue those there. This is not just about the overall idea of leaving Afghanistan. This is about leaving hastily and ineptly. Secretary Blinken, how did President Biden get this so wrong?
Mr. Sullivan, friends and foes alike are calling this withdrawal a fiasco, a debacle, and it is one that apparently the administration did not fully appreciate or see coming. Let me play you some of what the president himself has said in the last 6 weeks or so.
The likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
Do you see any parallels between this withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam with some people feeling...
None whatsoever. Zero. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan.
And yet that is precisely what we have seen over these last few days. How do you explain getting this so wrong?
Where is the president? Why isn't he communicating fulsomely to the American people?
The president has been deeply engaged in all of the policy conversations and in this situation as it evolves in real time. We have met with the president and his entire national security team daily and often multiple times a day. That's going to continue again today. The president has spoken to this issue a number of times in recent weeks. We expect that he will speak to it again.
John, totally different story than a few weeks ago, right? I mean, why isn't he out there now? Kabul fell yesterday. Where is the president?
But this is Joe Biden's. He made this decision. And I just worry a little bit about the, whataboutism or putting it back on Trump. You can do it. He owns a lot of it. But Joe Biden made this decision.
All right, guys. So that's CNN. Jake Tapper is even like, bruh, the way Biden handled this is kind of bad. Okay, it's kind of bad, right? So while this is happening, Biden is essentially in hiding, right? He's in hiding. He's not really saying anything. He's not really addressing the nation on this. Again, something I believe that if Trump was president, I do believe that he would be addressing the nation on this, right? But Biden's not. He's hiding instead. And CNN is even calling Biden out on the fact that he is hiding.
There is In fact, very little he can say that is good news. He is the commander-in-chief. There was clearly an intelligence failure from his team, from people who report to him. So that is what is behind the delay having him address the nation on this. They simply do not know exactly at this point what he is going to say. It has been 6 days since we have heard from President Biden on Afghanistan, and things have changed dramatically there, as we can see. That's an understatement of the highest proportions here.
And so let's read a little bit more here about Trump calling for Biden to resign. Former President Donald Trump Sunday called on President Biden to resign in disgrace over his handling of the Afghanistan withdrawal and other issues. Quote, it's time for Joe Biden to resign in disgrace for what he has allowed to happen in Afghanistan, along with the tremendous surge in COVID, the border catastrophe, the destruction of energy independence, and our crippled economy, the former president wrote in a statement. Okay, so I like what Trump is saying here, because this honestly is Joe Biden's fault to a certain extent, okay? Because a lot of people, like the neocons, Liz Cheney, and Adam Kinzinger are coming out and said, no, this is Trump's fault, right? This is Trump and Biden's fault, okay? Because saying that, well, Trump, he's the one that thought that we could negotiate with the Taliban in the first place, right? And they're criticizing Trump for basically setting this in motion when really Obama set this in motion, right? He set in the motion to actually try to withdraw from Afghanistan. Trump continued it, right? He actually got us closer to what the American people actually want. And Biden really botched it because Biden essentially did not stick to the caveat that Trump had set in place, which is, yo, you guys have to basically chill out, right? Or else we're going to come back in, right? That was what the agreement was. But Biden did not stick to that. Biden says we're pulling out no matter what. So Liz Cheney can sit here and try to act all high and mighty, right? To try to live in her dream world of staying in Afghanistan forever, right? And she wants to talk about somebody's fault. If she wants to talk about blame her daddy. Blame Dick Cheney and Bush for going in there in the first place. A lot of people feel like we should not have been in Afghanistan in the first place, okay? I mean, there's some serious questions about why we actually went in there, okay? There's some serious questions, right? There and Iraq. We got questions. So she doesn't want to blame the original source of the problem, going in there without an actual realistic expectation of how we're going to rebuild a country that we were going to destroy. She wants to blame Trump on being like, listen, let's just cut our losses and dip, right? She wants to blame him for that, but she don't want to go back to the original sin, okay? Because she lives in this pipe dream world that we're going to build up some democratically elected Afghan government that's going to fight against the Taliban and fight for women's rights, right? And that's what a lot of people are talking about. They're talking about, well, what about the women in Afghanistan? What about the human rights abuses? Listen, I'm not saying I don't care about that. I'm not saying, that's not a bad thing. It's terrible. I hate that that's happening, right? I hate the atrocities that are being committed there. But at the same time, these same atrocities are being committed all across the world in different countries, right? Anytime there are human rights abuses or, women are being abused in some way, are we supposed to invade the country, right? Are we supposed to do that? Because if that's the case, we got to invade Central Africa, right? We need to go into Central Africa. We need to go into a lot of places in the world if that's the standard, okay? If the men of the Afghanistan army, the men, can't even fight for their own country, if they can't even fight for their own country after being backed by the U.S. military and us spending $83 billion on them, it's not going to happen, okay? And that's the problem with these neocons, man. They buy into the sunk cost fallacy, okay? The idea, well, we spent all this money here already. We just got to stay forever until we accomplish a goal that we're never going to accomplish, right? That country has to handle their own problems, right? The men of that country have to fight back and, support the women in that country. It's up to them. It's up to them. The Taliban has rapidly taken control of most of the country as insurgent forces enter the capital city of Kabul, where troops have been sent to evacuate the embassy. Mobs of panicked people can be seen at the Kabul airport frantically trying to flee the city on Sunday. Trump's administration had negotiated terms of withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan by May 1st. Trump even considered withdrawing troops from the region before leaving office. When Biden announced that he planned to fully withdraw troops from Afghanistan by September 11th, the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, he was slammed by Trump, who insisted Biden keep as close as possible to his own goal of getting the troops out on May 1st. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I think that the main difference between Biden and Trump, in my opinion, is I don't think the Taliban would have tried this under Trump, right? I think they would have waited until the actual withdrawal, not during the withdrawal, but actually after they was gone to try something if they were. And there's no doubt in my mind that Trump probably would have stuck to his promise and clapped back at the Taliban if they had, basically broken the promise, right? Which, I mean, could have kept the Taliban at bay, right? It could have kept the Taliban at bay. Who knows? But what I do know is now the Taliban essentially has taken over the country, right? You got China and Russia talking to Taliban diplomats, basically saying, listen, we're not going to really officially recognize y'all, but just don't harm our interests, right? Keep our embassy safe. Don't mess with us. The enemy, y'all enemy is the United States. We chill with y'all, right? We don't really care who running the government as long as we protect our interests. That's kind of how it's going with China and Russia right now. Okay. But regardless, like I said, this is a disaster for the Biden administration. It really is an absolute disaster. And I believe that Biden will be addressing the nation today around 3 o'clock or something like that. So who knows? This video may be out before or after then. But it will be interesting to see what Biden says and go from here. But what I do know, like I said, is that this is a disaster for the Biden administration. And, the neocons really should not be trying to take a victory lap on this as if, oh, they were right. Because, again, the main criticism of Biden is not the fact that he's pulling out, it's how he's doing it. The American people overall agree that we don't need to be there. But Biden definitely botched the pullout, for sure. His pullout game weak, okay? Biden's pullout game is weak. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.